we're working on.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. It's me, Mitch. See, Peter over in the Kilt chat says, please everyone go to OldGuyCarnivore channel to watch Mitch. Thank you, Peter. Thank you, Peter. Doing his moderating job. Good to see everybody. Like I said, well, Kelsey, perfect timing. Holy mackerel, perfect timing. What do you think of that? Let's see, which scene should I give you first? How about this one? Little side view. A vision in orange this morning. Good morning, everybody. Let me say it again. Welcome to Morning Coffee with Mitch. Thursday, September 25th, 7 a.m. Remember yesterday when I said I'm going to sleep in? Well, forget that. I was right out in bushy tail this morning before 5 o'clock again. So I've been up watching kilts. At any rate, let's get to it. And you know the drill. Drink it if you got it. Let's not forget what's really important here. How are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. I gather a lot of you watched Kelsey this morning, and God, I felt the pain. I felt his pain. He's a trooper, though. When you have a show and a guest doesn't show up, and basically it's like having the producer off stage saying, the guest didn't show up. Can you ad-lib for an hour? That's what happens. Oh, Mark C. Gifted 5 OldGuyCarnivore memberships just in time for the private community live stream tonight. And I did remember to put it up there. I did it this morning. Private community, 7 p.m. Always a good time. Always a good time. So sometimes I think Mark C. and a few others are single-handedly growing that, at least keeping up with the cancellations of all the people who previously got gifts and decided that I'm not worth $3.99 a month. And I truly understand. Sometimes I ask myself that question. Oh, wow. So the chat's rolling. We got 72 people here already. The kids are coming down the hall from Kelsey's classroom. I watched Kelsey's show. I love all of those guys. When I watch any carnivore content on YouTube, and I consume a lot of it, like we all do, looking for answers. But I just want to make this one point. Maybe it'll give you a little food for thought, because that's what it does for me. I listened to experts, Ken Berry interviewing Dave Feldman for an hour and a half about Dave's studies. One of a kind. This one baffles me. Elke Kasky, somebody I don't recognize, and I don't know who it is, and I think it's the first time over here, said, "Hi, Alia from Dr. K said I should speak to Jenny about thyroid. Where do I find Jenny?" Anybody? Can anybody, Peter, you know, can you help? I think Elsky has wandered into the wrong classroom, but we're glad you're here. Can anybody help Elsky find Jenny so that she can ask about thyroid? A public service announcement from your host, Mitch. And I'll drink to that. Sorry, Elkie, I have no idea what that's about. And I'm probably the last guy in the world that you want to treat as a thyroid doctor and start asking for advice. Jenny was a doctor that Ollie recommended. I forget her last name. Okay, well, that helps, Peter, but I think maybe Elkie. But Elkie, glad you're here. Glad you're here. If nothing else, then for the shock value of what might come out of my mouth during the course of a day, or a little wisdom from just an old guy. But that's cool. I thought she said I could find her on here. Well, don't be sorry, Elkie. Don't be sorry. We'll take it. We'll take any excuse for anybody to wander over this way. Who knows? We might get we have a lot of regulars. You might get another regular. You might find something here that you say, wow, that guy's got some insight. Or you might say, what a clown. Let me get the hell out of here. That's up to you. But we're here to help. We're here. That's the ultimate thing. We're here in an entirely different way than Kiltz does it. This is not your morning sermon. It's not your morning. Motivational meeting, rah, rah, rah. It's motivation in a different way. It's to try to cement in your head that you're in the right place. And that those of us who have been doing carnivore have really, really seen the gains from it. So, and I think people come here like they go to a NASCAR race in a lucky event that a crash might happen and I might go out of my mind and start a rant. But I'll try to behave. If we have new people in the house, I'll try to behave. Good. Elkie says, enjoying my coffee with you. That a girl, if you like coffee and you want to be carnivore, by God, there's no better place for you than here. Because here, it's okay to drink coffee. At least that's my opinion. In moderation, cup or two, maybe three tops. Before noon, make sure you don't drink it too close to bedtime. Try to drink good coffee, filtered properly. Paper filters. Get most of those carcinogens out of there if that is really even a problem. But what I was saying that I watched Kiltz this morning, and I watch all these different experts, and the amount of information that you hear never ends. Always something new. Dave Feldman was talking about his study. His study is so unique in so many ways. But it's one study, and it was on 200 people by extension. Lean mass hyperresponder, which meant the 100 people that that study was on were basically 100 copies of Nick Norwitz, who we all know, if we know Nick Norwitz, is not your average physical specimen. A young PhD doctor, athlete, who has digestive problems, but falls into this class of lean mass hyperresponder. Crazy high cholesterol, or LDL, crazy high, crazy low triglycerides, and high HDL. So, what, even if results from that test, this was my takeaway, even if the results from that test show conclusively, without exception, that over the course of a year, all 100 of these amazing, low BMI, very thin, young in most cases, certainly younger than me, athletes that do hundreds of push-ups at a time, it showed after a year that none of these young, and let me emphasize that word, or younger, physical specimens of a human being showed any appreciable accumulation of coronary plaque. Very interesting. Very interesting. And the next time that I'm a 25-year-old, thin, fabulously healthy athlete with a low BMI, a low triglycerides, high HDL, and astronomical LDL, I will remember back. Remember, I'm 25 now, but I'll remember back to my previous lifetime where I watched Ken Berry and Dave Feldman basically tell me, and here's the part that makes me crazy, absolutely nothing that I could find actionable. Think about that for a minute. Nothing. No advice, conclusions out of that study that in any way, shape, or form could I, with any confidence, go forward in my 78-and-a-half-year-old life saying, well, that proves that I don't need to worry about building artery plaque. There you go. Even though at my age, I almost qualify as a lean mass hyperresponder, so I got that going for me. My BMI is 20. My triglycerides are under 100. My HDL is around 80. My LDL is 350. So I'm almost there. In fact, I think they've broadened the scope a little of that, and they've now categorized me as a near lean mass hyperresponder. Can I still compare myself with younger athletes and say, well, if they don't have to worry about it, I don't have to worry about it? And the answer is a flat, resounding no. So that leaves me back at square one. And all this just comes flying into the forefront of my mind when I watch Kiltsy and watch what he's going through. And I know better than most what he's going through because we talk about it, he and I. And we think exactly alike. And the problem with all of this stuff is that nobody knows hardly anything about it. And one of the reasons that nobody knows hardly anything about the real formation of plaque, the real causes of it, we have theories. The most realistic of those theories is, it makes the most sense if you understand the mechanisms of what LDL is, what it does, how it interacts with the immune system, is the inflammation argument. Is that plaque is caused because inflammation in the arteries causes the immune system to dispatch LDL, which is a boat or a vehicle, to the site of the injury and lay down some cholesterol, which is part of its cargo, and the body uses like spackle to smooth over the rough spots where there's inflammation. That to me makes more sense than cholesterol's clogging your arteries. The cholesterol doesn't stick to the inside of the artery walls, inside the artery. It burrows under the artery wall, and that's where the blockages build up, pushing the artery wall closed. With that in mind, and the fraudulent way that statins became the number one selling drug in America, with phony studies, misunderstandings, false conclusions, agendized players like Ansel Keys, drug companies eager for profits, I have to say, well, I still don't know for sure, but this is what makes sense to me. And if I'm looking for something actionable for me, that's the logic I have to use. Now, why do I feel like I'm eminently qualified? Francine Bourgeois had a question. This is a good one. It's on topic. Can you explain the difference between SD, LDL, and LDL? Absolutely. I can explain it. And I'm going to finish my thought, and then I will explain that to you. I will explain it and why I think it fits in. But what I'm talking about is the mindset that my friend Kiltsy is going through right now. And it's obviously evident when you listen to him express frustration at all the unknowns. It's dangerous that we all have the mindset that we're all out there. And the reason we're watching, well, there's a couple of reasons that we're just watching all of these purveyors of carnivore information, supplements, what drugs you should take, what food you should eat, what food you shouldn't eat, whether you should drink coffee, whether you shouldn't drink coffee, whether you need to fast, whether you don't need to fast. There's more questions than answers. And most of those answers are really only opinions. Because who among us has seen all the information and judge which of it is really valid or which it is just a sales pitch for something, which is more likely these days. It's more likely that somebody's selling you something than offering you free advice that actually means something. I had a stroke almost 7 months ago. I went through exactly what my friend Kiltsy's gone through now. I was barraged with all these expert doctors in their white coats and stethoscopes. who told me in no uncertain terms my high LDL absolutely caused my stroke, and you need to be on a high-dose statin immediately. When I pressed them, well, how do you explain that? How did this LDL cause my stroke? They told me that because I have so much LDL, you can't make this up, that it thickened my blood to the point where it clogged my arteries and my capillaries in my brain, and that's why I had the stroke. At that point, I knew these people had no friggin' idea what was going on. They didn't grasp the concept of LDL is not cholesterol. LDL is a vehicle carrying anything that is fat soluble through the blood, because otherwise it wouldn't get to the cells. That as a carnivore, as a lean carnivore, my LDL was very high because that's how my body got its food, which is fat now, not your sugar, but fat like it's supposed to be, to the cells. And that the size of these, even big fluffy LDL particles, would be like a ping pong ball going down a sewer pipe, for God's sake. Tiny, tiny molecular sized, not clogging the bloodstream. My blood is clear. My serum is clear. They never put two and two together. They don't understand any of it because they were never taught. They were only taught in a curriculum developed by the drug companies that you need to put all your patients on a statin. And the lunatic doctor that I had in the hospital even went so far as to be lobbying to put statins in all the drinking water, because this clown was convinced that even infants should be weaned on statins. Statins are proven to be very harmful, and about the best effect any study has ever shown, and this is what Kiltz was alluding to, about the best study that was ever shown was a study that showed a mild anti-inflammatory effect. Well, so does a baby aspirin, for God's sake. A baby aspirin is an anticoagulatory, anti-inflammatory, much safer alternative with almost no side effects to a statin. And if that's the best that you're telling me I'm going to get out of a statin, you haven't made the case that shows that, well, Mitch, you're correct. Even though you shouldn't take statins, everybody shouldn't take statins prophylactically so that they lower their cholesterol, because we don't really even know if that's a good thing. Why fight your body's natural programming to raise your cholesterol? There's a reason for that. In my case, the reason is, how the hell else are all those triglycerides going to get into my cells to create energy for me? Because that's the way we're supposed to work. I firmly believe that there's an explanation, and it's the one thing that I heard from Dave Feldman in an hour and a half with Ken Berry that actually, I said, well, that makes a lot of sense. And that was an answer to the question. An answer to the question. And I know I'm going on and on about this, but this, my friends, this subject is the subject that has to be settled for once and for all. Otherwise, we're all living in that kiltsy world right now where everybody's throwing advice at him for every direction. There is no way to find a definitive answer. Nelson is over there saying, well, we're only talking about risk reduction of 1%, 2%, 3% at most, falling back on the Crestor study, which was shown to be a fraud. One of 20, the only one that showed that these statins have any redeeming qualities and were able to reduce the risk of heart disease by, it's not even 1%, it was 0.8% absolute risk, which is meaningless noise in statistical analysis. I know all of this, and I can't reconcile it in my mind, where all of these so-called smart geniuses end up coming up with all of these wild recommendations that end up with a population of humans today sicker, fatter, and dying earlier and earlier every year as a result of it, because the average age lifespan in this country is now 76 years old. 76 years old. If they know anything and they're doing it right, why is the outcome not matching? And then all the studies that showed it's the opposite. The people with the highest LDL levels seem to have the lowest cause of all-cause mortality, and that is not conjecture. That is a meta-analysis of all the studies put together, and that's the best we got right now. And even that doesn't give you and me anything that's actionable, and that's the key word here, actionable. You can know all this stuff. You can figure out, weigh what makes sense and what applies and what doesn't. Think about the variables. I'm not a 21-year-old athlete anymore who has got a 19 BMI and an HDL of 100. Yeah, maybe it'll work for them, but how do I know if it works for you? We don't know, but we tend, and this is a problem, we want to fix it. We want to fix it. So the first time we hear somebody who's a great salesman make a convincing argument that coffee's bad for you, we quit coffee. Oh, that's it. I'm done. I put on my I quit coffee ribbon. Plants are trying to kill you. Okay, that's it. I'm done. I'm going to put on my plants are trying to kill you ribbon. I put it on and wear it on my shirt. I care more about my health than you do. Okay, I'm going to wear my I care more about my health ribbon. And we end up looking like a bunch of major generals from World War II, our chests completely covered with the ribbon equivalent of medals to show just how much smarter we are than everybody else. And we're not doing a damn thing that has ever been proven to really be beneficial in anything other than anecdotal evidence. And anecdotal evidence means you see it with your own eyes, basically. You're more likely to believe that, especially if it happened to you. So the fact that I went carnivore, all my pain went away and all my ailments went away and I lost weight, that to me is the most compelling evidence that it's right. But I still don't know whether I need to take a statin or not. And that's the problem. And Kiltz doesn't either. And I didn't either. And I went through 7 months ago exactly what he's going through now. You don't want to rule it out if this is something that it might do that's beneficial. And even though the statins have been vilified, rightly so, for being sold to us for a purpose to which they're really completely and totally unsuited, with the potential, at least in 25% of people who take them, of doing serious and maybe deadly harm to our muscles, the risk is nowhere near worth the almost non-existent reward that they claim of 0.8% increase or decrease in the chances that you might have a heart attack. 0.8%. But a 20-something percent risk that you may damage your heart muscle in the process. That's stupid. But it doesn't make anybody any money. So all these factors have to be considered. And poor Kelsey's going through it right now. I went through it, and I decided pretty quick. Take your statin and stick it where the sun don't shine. Thank you very much. I'll take the baby aspirin. I agree with the theory that a mild anticoagulant and a mild anti-inflammatory would be helpful in a recovering stroke patient. That I agree with. Low-dose baby aspirin has been a solution to that problem long before they invented these statins. And a statin isn't just a statin. There's low-dose statins, high-dose statins. And then you take it a step further with PCSK9 inhibitors. Stay out of nature. Stay out of trying to regulate on a day-to-day every bit of biology that you have. Life has been doing okay on its own since long before Pfizer was formed. We have the programming built in, and that's always been my basic philosophy. Yeah, I agreed with Kelsey this morning. If you're going to go to a hospital, you have a heart attack? Yes, of course you are. And I went to a hospital when I had my stroke. I noticed right off the bat the stuff they were doing didn't make any sense. I started complaining. Why are you doing that? They had me on all kinds of drugs. Where the hell did these drugs come from? Oh, well, we just assumed that you've been taking these drugs for years. Where did you get that idea? I don't know. Well, when you're faced with that kind of ignorance, tell them to stop. Think about what you do. I know you're busy. I know you got 3 minutes to spend with me because you got a whole line of people out there that have busted themselves up in drunk driving accidents and everything. But please, can you spend 2 minutes with me and maybe think about what the hell you're doing to me and the damage it might cause? Because if I let you continue to do what you're doing, my chances of dying from this stroke are going to be astronomical. And I started fighting for myself, and I managed to escape there. When I finally escaped from rehab, I had a handful of prescriptions they wanted me to take. They wanted me to take beta blockers when my blood pressure was low to normal. They wanted me to take statins out the wazoo. They kept... I said, thank you. I took the prescriptions I got home. I threw them in the trash can. And I've been recovering without all that. So now I see Kilt's going through the same thing. He had a high CAC score. BFD, Robert, my friend. BFD, how do you feel? Are you healthy? You have energy? Does your manly equipment still work? Are your ankles swollen up? Do you have signs of heart failure? Do you really want to go down that road of doing unknown things that might harm you dramatically for a fairy tale proposed benefit which nobody has yet been able to prove? And that Rita May says, question, Mitch, do you still see your heart doctor regularly? Rita May, I don't have a heart doctor. I don't want a heart doctor. I have no use for a heart doctor. They don't know as much about as I do. They may know the mechanics, and when my heart blows up or I have a valve leaking, I'll go see a heart doctor. I'm not saying you should do that. I'm saying that from what I've seen of the incompetence of most of these doctors, they're more dangerous than helpful in most cases. Yes, they can. And if you do need doctors, and that's not the problem. The problem is that the doctors are playing by the drug company rules. That's politics of it. And if they don't, they could lose their license. And the drug company rules, after all these years, have put elevated statins to a position of, if you don't prescribe a statin, if a person's cholesterol level, LDL, is above a certain amount, you're guilty of malpractice. And that's all based on fraud. So you fight the system, and fighting the system, you pay your price. You become labeled an uncooperative patient. They say to you, get out. If you won't do what we say, we're not going to touch you. Our lawyers have told us not to touch you. So you either do what we say or you get out. I'm at a point now in my life, pushing 80 years old, where the safest thing to do, the most prudent thing to do, in my opinion, and let me say that again, in my opinion, the safest thing to do is get the hell out. Stay away from them. Stay away from the labs. And once you get to be this age, my age, that's a whole nother subject, I would say. You're not living forever. You're not. If it's broke now, it's not. You're not going to fix it. There's nothing you can do. If my arteries are full of plaque, I should have some signs of that. Yes, I had a stroke, but after listening to Sally Norton tell me about what oxalates can do to the site of a brain surgery, and that's where I had my stroke, I'm convinced 1,000% that my stroke was not caused by cholesterol. It was caused by botched up medical procedure, which is more likely. It's the third leading cause of death in this country now. Medical mistakes. Third leading cause of death. Pulling up the rear, right behind cancer and heart disease. I think it's the first leading cause of death. I'll argue this point till the cows come home. The reason I think that medical mistakes and doctors' ignorance is the leading cause of death is because they're the ones that push this deadly dietary advice on us that cause all the heart disease and cancers in the first place. So if you took the doctors out of the equation, closed all the hospitals, drugstores, drug companies, fewer people in this country would die early. I firmly believe that. Yes, there would be a few people that could have been helped, but the numbers would be staggering. How many fewer people would be sick not following our dietary advice? How many fewer people would not be on 15 prescription drugs a day to manage all of the diabetes and the heart disease and the dementia and all the other illnesses caused by improper nutrition? If all that time, energy, and money was spent on making sure that proper nutrition was available to the general public and that you couldn't buy Coca-Cola and Skittles with food stamps, we'd have a healthier society. And there are countries in this world you can go and see that in action. And most of those countries are countries that don't have a lot of doctors and hospitals. Some of them are very primitive. But at least they're eating the right food. So you hear it every time I talk about this, and I rant about it. Is this an important thing to talk about? That's something you have to decide. Do you want to stick around and hear it? Is there anything actionable? And that should always be whether you spend your time with thought-provoking subjects. How does that apply to me? What can I do about it? We all think change is good. I mean, that's just been drummed into us from politicians from the time we were 3. Vote for me, vote for change. Well, we've all seen some of that change in our past political history was devastatingly bad and destructive. Not all change is good. Sometimes it's best to just tell the dealer, oh, I think I'll stick on that. Mr. Blackjack dealer, don't give me another card. Might hurt more than it helps. Actionable. The point of this whole thing is we absorb all this information. Some of it is compelling. It pushes us to buy that supplement, to change this, to give up the coffee, to start fasting more, to start fasting less, to do this and do that, and we stop following our instincts, which have been trying desperately to guide us all along. When we have a craving, it's telling us we're missing a nutrient somewhere, and we're being compelled to stuff as much of our mouth as we can. If we're satiated and don't feel like eating, we shouldn't eat. If we're not thirsty, we don't need to be drinking. We have to allow ourselves to go back to that animal from whence we came. But every time I say that, of course, half the population of this country riles up their feathers and say, we didn't come from animals. And I got to get into that discussion. And basically accept the fact that all the science from the last 100, 200 years was just a hoax to convince people that God didn't really create them. There's times in my life where I say, Mitch, time for you to find another planet to live on. This one is inhabited by people who live in a fantasy world for one reason or another. And that's my opinion. And people hate me for that too. So you can't win. You can't win. Which is why I get up in the morning and say, why the hell do I even do this? Am I helping anybody? So actionable, I'll get back to that. Actionable. What's actionable? Sometimes it's better not to take any action if you're doing okay. Do I want to go get a CAT scan? Why do I want to put myself through that? I'm convinced that a lifetime of eating shit has clogged up my arteries. I don't think it's bad enough to kill me. I don't think it caused my stroke. I don't think I'm going to live forever. So my decision at this point, at being almost 80 years old, is to say to myself, Mitch, what? I say, Mitch, snap out of it. Stop agonizing over adding a year to your life and enjoy the maybe, hopefully, 10 or 20 you got left, and stop worrying about it and trying to fix it. You can't. You can't fix it because nobody has a real fix. When your arteries are clogged, you got one choice: surgery. And if you're not in debilitating pain, if you haven't had a heart attack, don't go fooling around. You'll do more harm than good. Why would you go to get a stent put in proactively? That's my thinking. Other people, some reason, think I want to live to the last minute I can. I don't know how much I'm suffering or if I'm bedridden. I'm sorry, I don't want to do that. I want to have quality of life. I'm trying to get it back after the stroke. The stroke, I don't think, was caused by any of this, even though the doctors told me it was. But how the hell do they know? They don't know. I didn't have nearly enough tests. The VA wouldn't pay for the kind of tests it would take for them to absolutely diagnose where that microscopic clot came from that caused my stroke. Could be anything. They looked superficially. They did ultrasounds and they did scans and they did MRIs and they did all that shit. And the best answer I got out of any of them was, well, we don't know for sure. Well, no shit, Doc. I didn't expect you to know for sure because it's unknowable. Not unless you were monitoring the capillary blood flow in every capillary in my brain full time and were able to play back the results of all the sensors that were measuring that flow, and that doesn't exist. They don't know. They guessed. Francine is asking a lot of questions. Mitch, what happened to the nice shirts? Just not the nice shirt mood. I have them, Francine. I want to still answer your question about the small dense LDL. But again, I burned 45 minutes of this stream and haven't said hello to a single soul like yesterday. I don't know if this is more meaningful. A way to use the time I have here, just rather than just saying hi to everybody. I know it makes you feel good to hear your name mentioned, but these are things I think are important. I won't do that small dense LDL thing now because that's a discussion that could take a half an hour by itself. It's a very complicated subject. I understand it thoroughly, but I don't think now's the time, Francine. I've done videos on it. I've talked about it at length over the course of my little YouTube career. But I just, all this stuff goes through my mind while I watch my friend Kiltz struggle about whether he should take a statin or not. I can't advise him. He's a doctor. He should be advising me. But he's a smart doctor. He's a smart man. And the fact that he's struggling with this shows you just how little chance any of us laymen actually have of making the right decision. And usually allow ourselves to be bullied into it by the medical community. So, no, I don't have a heart doctor. I don't want a heart doctor. And if I ever needed a heart doctor, there's one or two in this country I would go after because they're carnivore. The rest of them could go to hell. I'd rather die and be buried than suffer for 10 or 20 years as a cripple, invalid, drooling because of damage done because I trusted the wrong doctor and took the wrong advice, which is most of it. Now, I'm a little jaded, so you have to say, well, Mitch is at this extreme of the doctor distrust. Somewhere at the other end of the extreme are people who just love their doctor. Their doctor is a member of their family. They don't go to the bathroom without calling their doctor first and saying, I don't know, doc, should I stand up or should I sit down? I don't make a move without your advice. Peter Kruger says, love to talk, Mitch. Always learning on your show. So that was when you're a lonely old man who does nothing but think all day. These are the things to think about. And at the final analysis of it is, I end up not doing much of anything. In fact, the only thing I really did lately was just to add those 2 amino acid supplements to my diet to help slow down sarcopenia and muscle loss, which would be a normal thing to expect. And so far, so good. But all the other crap that I keep hearing, I'm not buying. Am I hurting myself? There's always that possibility. But how do you know? How do you know? And the track record of this medical system doesn't bode very well for its outcomes. And just go down the street where they're building that new hospital, building those new nursing homes and hospice centers, adding those dialysis wings to the hospitals that exist. The medical business is booming. They're monopolizing television advertising now. Cancer hospitals are springing up everywhere. and vying for your business. The costs keep going up. It's at a point now where it's wrecking our economy. Insurance rates, you won't be able to get it for much longer. We'll be forced into single payer, and the taxpayers will have to foot the bill for all the stupid medical care that's unnecessary, or most of it. And the doctors will keep the car dealers and the country clubs in business. And the rest of us, God knows what will happen to us. We won't even be able to get an appointment with them because we followed their advice and got sick. And then when we try to get back in to see them, we got to wait 6 months for an appointment. We're headed down a horrible road. And there's no stopping it unless you individually wake up. And even that's a gamble because there's a chance that I could be wrong. And why the hell are you listening to me anyway? Because everybody knows that eating red meat is going to kill you. And if I manage to live to be 115 years old and I come back and say, I've been eating nothing but red meat, they'll say, well, you're lucky and it must be something different about you because it kills everybody else. Nobody will ever believe it. JD, I just got result yesterday. Doctor flipped, wanted to give me statin LDL 444, HDL 116, triglyceride. I'm lean. Oh man, you are exactly the guy, JD. Exactly the guy that the study, the lean mass hyper study was done for. You are the healthiest human being on the planet. In reality, numbers like that are incredible. It shows your body's working like a well-oiled machine. You're living on fat and transporting that fat around. Your HDL is through the roof. Your triglycerides are low. Your ratio is 0.5, for God's sakes. And your doctor wants to give you statins, which will, maybe not immediately, but start to slow decline into death for you, fighting your healthy body's natural chemistry all the way. Doctors like that maybe aren't bad people. They're brainwashed. They're brainwashed. And if you come back in 5 years to your doctor and he takes a scan and you're still healthy as a horse, he'll find an excuse why you're different than everybody else. It is maddening. But there's so much money riding on people not finding out that anytime we make this big an advance, come up with something just this much of something that will convince people for sure, the drug companies unleash a veritable shitload of additional propaganda to take our message and push it down again because it costs them money. So what are you going to do? That's the world we're living in. You have to hide from it. You have to help the people you can. Do the best you can for yourself. Try to ensure that you can still get the food that's healthy because they want that to go away too. They want to kill all the cows. They're crazy. They're crazy, misled, gullible human beings that buy into everything. And I've reached a point now where I think I have less risk just by completely running the other way from them than ever relying on them for anything, because unless they have to carry me in on a stretcher, and then there's nothing I can do except commit suicide maybe on the way to the hospital. So they can't make it a slow, long, painful death. These are the thoughts you get when you get old. Rita May says, I watch too many people's health decline on statins. Oh, I've seen so many people. Severe muscle pain. Way back when I was dating, I had a girlfriend. Was perfectly healthy. The doctor had her on these ridiculous statins. I tell her, you don't need that. She says, my doctor says I need it. She had to go 3 times a week to a massage therapist just to live with the pain that she had from the statins. And I kept telling her. We finally broke up like I did with every other one of my girlfriends. She was just a pain in the ass. It was always doctors this, doctors that, doctors the other. There was no need for any of it. A year after I broke up with her, a year, I got an email from her. Mitch, you were right. I finally got off the statins and all my pain went away. She lived with pain for years, taking pills that crippled her, that had no benefit whatsoever other than the fact that they required her to go back to the doctor once a month to get her liver enzymes checked. I've seen so much of that. It's a crime. It's a crime against humanity. And I rant about it. Back at the beginning, Proud American said, drink it if you got it. I'm hopelessly behind in the chat because I've been going at this for an hour. I didn't mean to do this today. I did it yesterday too. But I'm so frustrated. I see so much of this nonsense affecting people I care about. I listen to Kiltz agonizing over trying to find the definitive answer about why he shouldn't take a statin. I hear Nelson get into the argument and say, should everybody not take a statin? No. Should everybody take a statin? No. Okay, those are all great arguments. There's nothing actionable about any of those arguments. There's nothing that can say to Kiltz, here's proof that this will do what you intended to do and stop the progression of plaque in your arteries. There's no tests. There's no evidence. There's only conjecture and theories. And once you reach a certain age, Kiltz is going to be 70, I'm going to be 80. There is a time in life when I think we need to say, I've done the best I could. I'm going to coast the rest of the way and not worry about it, because the worry itself will kill you. The stress caused by the angst of waiting for that next number out of the laboratory. It will only do you at that point more harm than good, because, and here's the key, because there is no cure anyway. That's the key. Now, if you're 30 years old, I would think that if you can find some way to slow down or stop the progression of atherosclerosis, that would be a great time to do it. And with what we know now, maybe, they don't have it yet, but the best advice now is a healthy diet. It's not drugs. It's never drugs. It's never going to be drugs. We cannot exist as a species if we can't live without drugs. If life can't sustain itself, life will go extinct. Eventually. There'll come a time when the drugs aren't available. There'll come a time when insulin's not available. And all the diabetics will just die because they can't get insulin. There'll be a time when food isn't available because they've killed all the cows. And we're all trying to live on some kind of soybean derivative. And life will die. Life has to be self-sustaining in its environment. or it will die and go extinct. Most species that have ever lived on this planet are extinct because something they needed to live disappeared. We will go extinct as a human race. Flying us to Mars isn't going to mean anything. The sad reality is that if we can't get what we need to sustain life in our environment, in our society, in our culture, if we don't create so many human beings on this planet that the competition for those resources becomes unbearable, our culture and our society and our species will die, just like every hominid before us went extinct. Homo sapiens were the end of the line for us, and if I had to be a betting man, I'd bet that it's not when or if, but when our species goes extinct and just joins the hundreds of millions of other species of living things that inhabited this planet before we got here. That's reality. I'm sorry. It's reality. I see it every day. It's harder to find food, harder to afford food, harder to avoid the medical community wanting to regulate every aspect of my life with drugs. I want to run from it. I want to hide from it. I want to live out what I have in my life. Now, I'm almost 80. If I was 30, it'd be a different story. And we reach a point, and this is maybe some advice for some of us that are older. You reach a certain point where if you're stuck with what you got, maybe it's better to just try to be happy, not worry about everything, not agonize over it, accept the fact that nobody lives forever. We all know that, but none of us really accept that. I know what goes on in your mind. Well, maybe nobody lives forever, but not me. I'm going to live forever. Somewhere back in your mind, you probably believe that. Somebody's going to come along and save you on a white horse who's going to have the magic cure. I missed so much of the chat today. I've got so much to say, so many ideas, so many concepts, so many realities to talk about. I can't do it all in 1 hour in the morning. If I make videos, you don't watch them. 100 people, 120 people come in here. Nobody's interested in this shit. People are not interested. I accept that. I accept that. I'd be surprised if I had an audience like Ken Berry. People come here primarily because they want to know how to make a chuck roast. I mean, that's all well and good, but as far as I'm concerned, that really isn't helping anybody. There's a million places you can learn how to throw a chuck roast in a slow cooker. But those are the videos that made me popular on YouTube. Unfortunately, you're all stuck with me now. This is why I'm gravitating towards these live streams, because there are things I want to say. And right, wrong, or otherwise, somebody should be saying these things. Somebody should be saying these things. I don't feel a responsibility to say them, but what else I got to do? All right, that's enough of that for right now. Let me just see if there was any question. I'm just going to race through this chat. Thanks again to Mark C. for gifting of 5 private community memberships, and we'll talk about that tonight. I'd love to see people bear with me. Why? Try to get through an hour behind in the chat. Unbelievable. I'm glad to see you've all been chatting and having a good time. I haven't seen too many highlighted names come up in the left in the chat on the left here. Do you believe particle size makes a difference, Michael Perkins said? Particle size makes... let me talk about that real quick. Particle size is the only thing that's important with LDL. The only thing. Not that do I believe it makes a difference. I believe it's the only thing that makes a difference. Why do I say that? Because we know, we've seen it with a microscope, that atherosclerosis is not on the inside of the artery wall. It's under the artery wall. It's like if you have an infection on your arm and it becomes a bump and it raises up your skin, that infection is under your skin. It's not sitting on top of your arm. You can't just brush it away. It is under your arm. Well, that's where plaque builds up. Plaque builds up under the interior cells of the arteries. LDL, these little protein boats that carry cholesterol but are not cholesterol. Oh, God, I say that so many times. They motor along in the river of blood that's inside the artery walls, and they don't stick to the artery walls. The artery walls are smooth until they get inflamed by something. That inflammation makes them rough. Now, that's where we've all heard of large buoyant LDL. Well, LDL means low density lipoprotein. A VLDL now is a very low density lipoprotein, and a VLDL is what the liver makes, fills it full of triglycerides to send fat as fuel to the cells. And it takes off out of the liver every morning, and it goes around and it visits every cell through the capillaries. And you know these things have got to be pretty small. Even though they're very large ones, they're still small enough and have to be to get through these microscopic capillaries that feed blood to every cell. So how big can it really be? And can something small enough to fit through a capillary, 1/100th the size of a human hair or less, could it really clog up your main aorta? No. Does anybody out there understand that the actual relative size in microns of these things? They're not clogging your arteries. Most of them, if not all of them, in a healthy individual, will be large, fluffy, small, tiny little small particles, but we call them large and fluffy, relatively. And don't do anything and don't stick to anything and don't clog into anything. But here's the most important thing. They don't burrow into anything. They don't burrow into anything. They're too big. It'd be like throwing a basketball at your concrete driveway and expecting it to penetrate the concrete to the dirt below. I don't care how hard you throw that basketball at that concrete driveway, it's not going to penetrate the driveway. Well, okay, Mitch. What happens? All right. What happens is the LDL particles get damaged, which is what Well, the D in SD-LDL, the D in small dense LDL, could be small dense or small damaged. Well, how do they get damaged? Well, you just eat too much friggin' sugar, number one. You got sugar everywhere. The sugar glycates the LDL. It just gloms all over it. Becomes a big sticky mess. And if that's not bad enough, there's a protein on that LDL on the outside that's like a license plate that identifies it as an LDL molecule to the liver. So when it does get back to the liver to be recycled and refilled, when it gets back to the loading dock, the license plate reader on the loading dock can't read the license plate because it's got sugar glommed all over it. And that wasn't bad enough. It gets oxidized too. Because not only are you eating a high sugar diet, but you're eating a diet full of oxalates and all kinds of other things that will actually oxidize things. And what is oxidation but rust? The oxygen will form chemically with everything. And by the time the oxygen and the sugar gets done with that poor little LDL truck, it's got 4 flat tires. Somebody spray painted over all the identifications. They've thrown goo on it and sugar on it and left it out there in the bloodstream, and nobody even recognizes it as a truck anymore. And when it tries to go back to the liver says to it, well, I don't know what you are, go away. So it's exiled to the bloodstream. And while it's in the bloodstream, it's not getting any new stuff in it. So anything that's in it is smaller and smaller, and finally this thing starts shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking. It is a dead, lifeless hulk of what used to be an organic molecule. It's so small now. It has become so small that when it goes up to the artery, and it goes up to the artery wall, a wall that used to look like a concrete driveway to it, it's so small now that wall now looks like a screen door. It's smaller than the spaces between the cells. And it can go right through. Can go right through the artery wall. And it lodges underneath where it becomes inflamed. Because the body starts mounting an immune system response to it. And the little macrophages come along and try to eat it. And it gets red and sore. And then the body's immune system sends undamaged LDL to the site, through the bloodstream, in the back of the artery wall, and starts putting cholesterol in there to patch up all that mayhem caused by those damaged little LDL particles in the first place. Now, what caused heart disease? Well, they blame it on LDL. Well, that's both true and false. The small damaged LDL caused the inflation, but the actual cholesterol that was delivered to the site was caused by the healthy LDL and the immune system in an effort to fix it. Have you ever heard that explanation before? No. No. Can you understand why the average layperson would think, well, LDL causes damage? Well, you're half right. You're half right. But don't confuse the reparative tasks of LDL, bringing cholesterol to the site of inflammation. And that's where people will accept the fact that inflammation causes the plaque to build up. It has nothing to do with the LDL. The LDL are just players in this drama. The LDL are misused, mistreated, subject to the ravages of all the crap that we're eating based on their dietary advice. So the only reason why I get so pissed off at the actual way all this works, and it all relates, and it all fits into a puzzle that makes sense, Do you know how frustrating it is to try to explain this to people whose minds is made up and been propagandized and brainwashed all their lives and think LDL is cholesterol? LDL is not cholesterol. They finally made a concession in the tests when they put LDL-C. And that literally means the cholesterol contained within an LDL particle. That's not measured. That's never measured. That is an estimate. It's estimated to be a certain percentage of the weight of the whole LDL particle. So when you get an LDL measurement, you don't even know if it's all cholesterol. It's just an estimate. An estimate in who? An unhealthy person or a healthy person? Maybe it's mostly triglycerides. Maybe it's mostly fat-soluble vitamins. Maybe it's vitamin D that your LDLs are full of. When you see a FedEx truck go by, how do you know what's in it? Well, let's just assume that 20% of every FedEx truck is an Amazon package. Yeah, let's assume that. So when I see a FedEx truck go by, I should accurately be able to compute the number of packages that came from Amazon. Well, how do you know? Well, it's an average, It doesn't work that way. It's all built on nonsense. And we have become a one-number healthcare system, and we live and die by that number and drug ourselves to death by that number and worry ourselves to death by that number. Plaque is a real thing, and it does have real causes. Give me something actionable. Tell me something I can do to reduce the amount of plaque. Everybody's got advice for me. Tell Dr. Kiltz what he can do. He's worried about it too. The true answer is they don't understand enough about this stuff to have even thought about developing any kind of real actionable thing we can do. As far as I'm concerned, the best thing that any of us can do, and this is what I'm already doing, is stop eating sugar and plants and seed oils. That's the answer, as far as my opinion is. That's the advice. Anybody comes with any medical condition, what can I do? The best advice you can give them is stop eating sugar, seed oils, and plants. Go on a 100% strict carnivore diet for a while. Then you bring addiction into it. That's the answer. So when a doctor says to me, well, you got this plaque. I said, yeah, I know. I probably got a lot of plaque. What am I going to do about it? Well, we need to put you on a statin. I said, well, does a statin clear out plaque? Well, no, but it's just, well, then why would I want to take it? Well, it's going to keep you from building any more plaque. I'm already doing that with a carnivore diet. Well, everybody knows that diet's going to kill. No, not everybody knows, you moron, that diet's going to kill me. That diet has made me healthy. You forget, I've already lived past the average lifespan of people in this country. What is that statin going to do for me? Well, it can reduce inflammation a little bit. I'm taking a baby aspirin, does the same thing. What's the statin going to do? Is it going to get rid of my artery? No. What can I do to get rid of that artery? Well, we can do 5-way bypass surgery. Well, I don't have any heart pain. I don't have any chest pain. I'm no shortness of breath. I have no erectile dysfunction. I have no swelling in my ankles. I want to show you something. This is a... Oh, you never know what you're going to see here on Morning Coffee with Mitch. Let me find this. Hold on a second. Somebody asked me about, I don't know how else to prove it to you people. I don't know how else to prove it. I know this may not be pretty. It may not be pretty and maybe not something you want to see this morning, but look, that is my foot. That is my right foot. That is in the afternoon. That is the leg right after the stroke that had edema and swelling. And I have none. The circulation in my leg has returned completely to normal. Skin and bones on my feet or not. Why? Look, that's my right foot. That's my left foot. I have my fingernails, my toenails need to be cut, but I have no swelling whatsoever. And there's another aside. That's not bad for an old man's foot. And that's not it. Let me show you. I want to show you my new shoes. Yes, I got some new shoes. This is my new look now. This is my new look. I was wearing socks. White, short athletic socks. But I've healed enough now where I'm actually working towards going barefoot more. Because that's healthier. Not just because you're touching the ground, but because of support. I don't want to have to rely on support shoes and all that stuff. I want to be healthy again, and I'm working towards it. So I bought these shoes that I can wear without socks, and they're comfortable, and I'm walking much better in them. So things are improving, Doc. Why do I need your statin? Because it will reduce my risk of having another stroke or recurring stroke by 0.5%? Sorry, I'm not going to sacrifice my life and health for a 1 out of 200 chance that maybe I won't have another stroke. This is where we have to take our health into our own hands. And I can't tell you how to do that. I can tell you study everything that I've studied. Maybe that'll help. I don't know. But the particle size is very important. Well, how do you find out? Michael, finishing your question. How do you find out? What your particle size is? Well, they have a test, a blood test. The normal cholesterol test, they spin these things in a centrifuge and they kind of clump up in certain specific gravity weight ranges, and the lightest of them are VLDL. Then comes the LDL, or the ILDL, then the LDL, then the HDL. Different densities. Well, they have. Well, I've answered this one. I've answered Francine's question in the process here. They have a test called an NMR. It's a way to divide these particles into many more groups based on their density. And they can also count the particles. NMR stands for nuclear magnetic resonance. It's a way that they can get these things vibrating at certain frequencies where they'll glump up in certain groups, and they can chart it out, and it turns out to look like a spectrograph. You see lines on the chart where these different groups of sizes of LDL particles live, and they have divided that when it gets to the small LDL into two patterns, pattern A and pattern B. Pattern A by itself is supposedly the preferable one. Pattern B shows a much bigger range of these small damaged particles, and that's not good. Can you get this test? Probably not. I know the VA won't pay for it. Most insurance companies won't pay for it. It's an incredible diagnostic tool, but nobody wants to pay for it. Why would we need it? All it's going to do is result in the fact that we might prescribe less statins, and we can't have that, can we? Because they might discover that that's not the real, they don't need a statin, that the real cause of their problem is they eat too much sugar and too much oxidative stuff. We can't have them figuring that out, can we? That's the state we're in right now. We have the tests, just like we have tests that can detect the oncoming of diabetes years before it actually happened. C-peptide tests. We know now that the glucose tolerance tests are useless. And as you continue to have to make more insulin every year for 10 years as your diabetes goes out of control, you could have found that out 10 years ago. By detecting the first time your pancreas had to start ramping up its insulin production to keep up with it. Because as long as it can keep up with it, it can keep the blood sugar down. Simple as that. Does your doctor do a fasting insulin or C-peptide on you? Hell no. And then one year you're going in, your A1C is 13. Surprise! They call it the practice of medicine. I'm going to stand on the sidelines until they're done practicing and they get it right. How long will I have to wait? Peter, I see you've been motivated. This is what Rita May says. Do you see your heart doctor? I don't have a heart doctor. Never did. Don't want one. Do not want one. They sent a cardiologist in to see me when I was in the hospital. I had my stroke. All this guy did was stir the water, confuse everybody, end up being wrong, making a fool of himself, and then on the way out, he hands me his business card and says, "Oh, if you'd like to have an appointment with me, call my office." I looked at him like, "Are you nuts? I don't want to go away." That's a long story what he did, but turns out he was wrong about everything he said. And thank God he ordered another cardiac ultrasound before he started doing angiograms on me and probably poked a hole somewhere in my heart and killed me. People are incompetent. Those doctors that are on call in the emergency room that come to see you when you're taken to the hospital are the doctors that nobody wants to see. They're the lawyers hanging around the emergency room looking for cases. The good doctors are plenty busy that they don't need to go trolling emergency rooms to pick up patients. Be wary of those doctors who wander in to see you in the emergency room. Stay away from all of them if you can. My advice. Probably the best advice given on YouTube anywhere today. Advice that nobody's going to hear. Well, I did it again. Mitch rant. As is an important issue. Thank you, Jem. It is important. It is important. Jem also said animals in the wild don't need doctors. Well, they might need a doctor if they break a leg or something, but they're not going to get one. And most of them live longer lives because of the fact they don't have people doctoring it up. You know, the word doctoring can mean screwing things up too. You ever hear somebody say, "He really doctored that up"? Yeah. There's the one about the shirts. Saw that one. See if I can get 747. Oh, I'm so far behind. So far behind. At any rate, I did it again. I ran my mouth for an hour and a half. The sad part is I feel like I haven't even started yet with so many of the things I want to say. So we'll just keep doing it. And if I didn't say hi to you, which I didn't, hi to everybody. Appreciate you all coming. I think we're going to wrap it up. It's been an hour and a half. That's enough of that. I'm worn out. I'm not really worn out, but I got my cleaning girl coming today. And I did. I got to the bottom of the chat. How about that? Tuka, my appetite and energy levels are coming back, a good sign. And Mitch rant is always good. CB, how you doing, CB? Good to see you. Animals in the wild do have doctors. They're called predators. And Donna Ray, Main Runner, how you doing? We all eat differently on carnivore, but we're getting healthier. We are getting healthier. Cut out the sugars and the oxidative crap. That's the main cause of disease. Isn't that obvious yet? We focus so much on micromanaging things that really don't make that much difference. Like, do I drink a cup of coffee a day or not? It's incredible. It's incredible. DS111, how you doing? All right, my friends. There's a little, after all that, we'll give you a little happy music. Say goodbye to everybody in the chat. I'll be back tomorrow for Friday. Friday morning, 26th. Maybe I'll spend tomorrow morning just reading the chat and saying hi to you guys. Unless something sets me off. But after watching Kelsey this morning, I felt his pain. I know exactly what he's going through. It's something we all need to figure out for ourselves, but try not to worry ourselves to death in the process is the key, I think. I hope that my explanations of in the realm of LDL have helped. I think I'm right on the money with that. Based on the literature, the knowledge, and studies and things that I've read, and the chemistry of it, how it works. Michael Pringle says, I ask questions because I value your opinion. Thank you, Michael. I know you do, and I appreciate the respect. And if I'm ever wrong about something, that's possible too. I may have misunderstood something that I've studied, but usually that gets rejected when it doesn't fit in with everything else I know. Everything's got to fit together. You can't have a branch of a tree hanging out in midair. You can't have a piece of a puzzle that doesn't fit. Something's wrong. Got to find out what it is. Mike Sealy Sr. says, great show today. Thank you, Michael. And on that note, thanks to everybody for coming. Thanks for putting up with me and my rantings. Hope something that came out might have meant something to some of you. That's the best I can hope. Until tomorrow, take the rest of the day off and eat meat.